Imagine this. You're trying to understand a really complex pharmaceutical process.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of wading through piles of dense reports, you get the key insights sort of distilled for you.
Right. That's the goal.
Well, that's exactly what we're aiming for today. You've shared some, well, really fascinating material with us.
Yeah, focusing on a pretty significant shift, I think, in how medicines get made.
Exactly, the adoption of continuous flow
It's
reactors.
a big topic. This move away from the traditional batch methods, it's a real evolution.
Definitely. And the sources you provided give us a great window into that.
A good range of angles for sure.
Okay, so let's unpack this. For this deep dive, we're basically comparing this modern continuous approach
Right.
to the traditional batch methods. We want to look specifically at, safety, efficiency, and also scalability. How easy is it to ramp up production?
And the material really covers a lot of ground. You've got stuff on like drug interactions, early development, all the way through to regulatory guidelines and the actual, manufacturing processes themselves. So we can look at it from different viewpoints.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission today really is to cut through the technical jargon.
Yeah.
We want to highlight the really important bits, the why it matters, and maybe those surprising facts, the aha moments.
So you, the listener, can quickly get a handle on the impact of these continuous flow reactors.
Right. In the pharma world.
So roadmap-wise, we'll start with the basic difference, batch versus continuous flow.
Okay.
Then dive into those advantages, safety, efficiency, scalability.
And you mentioned some real-world examples.
Yeah, we'll touch on some specific ways these technologies are being used to make active pharmaceutical ingredient, APIs.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's start there, the fundamentals. Batch versus continuous flow. What's the core difference we need to grasp?
While the traditional way, batch processing, it's essentially step-by-step.
Okay.
Each stage in making the drug, it has a clear start and a clear end point.
Like baking.
Exactly, like baking individual cakes or maybe cookies is better. You mix one batch of dough,
Right.
you bake that batch, you let it cool. Then maybe you start over with a whole new batch. Each one is distinct.
Got it. Separate units. So how does continuous flow fit into that analogy? Is it still baking?
It's more like, those conveyor belt pizza ovens? Or maybe a donut machine.
Ah, okay. I see.
Ingredients go in one end constantly, and they move seamlessly through all the stages, cooking, maybe adding toppings.
Why?
And then finished pizzas or donuts come out the other end in a steady stream.
So in pharma terms,
Raw materials are constantly moving through a connected system. Through the reactors, purification steps, everything linked up.
okay, that's a really clear distinction. Instead of isolated steps, it's one kind of fluid, ongoing process.
Exactly.
So what does this shift mean then when we talk about making the process safer?
Well, there are a few key ways it enhances safety. A big one people talk about is the use of microreactors.
Microreactors. Okay, tiny reactors.
Essentially, yeah. They operate with incredibly small volumes of the chemicals at any given moment.
Ah, okay. So smaller amounts of potentially dangerous stuff means less risk. Is that the idea?
That's exactly it. If you're dealing with, say, a highly energetic reaction or hazardous materials, keeping those volumes tiny dramatically lowers the potential danger if something, goes wrong.
Like controlling a spark versus a bonfire.
Perfect analogy. You get much, much finer control over the reaction conditions, temperature, mixing, much finer than in a huge vat.
That makes sense. Did the sources mention how that improved control translates to, say, fewer unwanted side products or impurities?
Well, it wasn't always explicitly stated like zero impurities, but the concept of things like rapid quenching comes up.
Quenching, like stopping the reaction fast.
Exactly. Imagine a reaction needs to stop at a very precise point before it starts making unwanted stuff.
Right.
In a flow system, you can precisely control how long the materials react the residence time and then bam, cool it or neutralize it super quickly.
Stopping it right on the money.
Yeah, much harder to do that evenly and quickly in a giant batch tank. Plus, there's another factor.
What's that?
Automation. These continuous systems are often highly automated.
Ah, less human intervention.
Right, which naturally reduces the potential for human error. That's
Yes.
a pretty big win for safety overall.
Okay, so tighter control, smaller volumes, less hands-on fiddling. Sounds like a definite safety plus. Let's pivot to efficiency then. How does this continuous approach boost efficiency?
Potentially, quite significantly. One major area is yield and waste.
Higher yields, less waste.
That's the potential because the conditions inside a flow reactor can be so precisely controlled and stable.
Hmm.
You can often optimize the reaction to be more complete, make more of what you want, and less of the side products that just become waste.
Makes intuitive sense. Better control, better outcome.
And then there's integration.
Integration.
Yeah, linking multiple steps together. Imagine doing several chemical reactions, maybe even some purification, all happening sequentially in a connected flow path without having to stop, isolate the intermediate product, store it, move it.
Ah, like a chemical assembly line.
Exactly. That saves time, obviously, but also prevents loss of material every time you handle or transfer it in a traditional batch sequence.
So less handling loss, more seamless processing.
hmm
Does this translate to faster production overall? Do the sources suggest that?
They often imply it. While they might not give hard numbers like 10x faster, the ability to use, say, higher temperatures safely in small channels
Right.
or more effective, maybe aggressive catalysts means reactions can often run much faster in flow, minutes instead of hours,
Well,
potentially.
okay, that could dramatically speed things up.
Definitely impacts the overall production timeline.
So higher yields, less waste, integrated steps, potentially faster reactions. Now, scalability, this seems like a big one. How does continuous flow handle the need to make more of a successful drug?
Yeah, this is often highlighted as a major advantage. Traditionally, scaling up a batch process means
Building bigger tanks.
pretty much bigger reactors, bigger mixers, bigger everything.
And I guess that's not always simple.
Not at all. As you get bigger, things like ensuring even mixing or controlling temperature become much, much harder. It doesn't just scale linearly.
Like your coffee analogy earlier, a great cup doesn't guarantee a great giant vat.
Exactly. Continuous flow uses a different philosophy, often called numbering up.
Numbering up, what's that?
Instead of building one massive, hard-to-control reactor,
Uh-huh.
you simply run multiple, identical, smaller, already optimized flow reactors in parallel.
Oh. So instead of one giant oven, you just line up more of your really good small ovens.
That's the perfect way to put it. You increase total output without messing with the validated conditions inside each unit.
That sounds much more predictable.
It is. More predictable, potentially lower capital investment compared to designing huge bespoke equipment. And there's resilience too.
How so?
Well, if one small reactor unit needs maintenance, you can take it offline.
Without shutting down the whole operation.
Exactly. With one giant batch reactor, if it goes down, everything stops.
That's a really strong point. Flexibility and robustness. Okay, let's talk specifics. You mentioned the flow Barbier process and continuous reductive emanation earlier. What are those and why is flow good for them?
Sure. The Barbier reaction, it's a way to make carbon bonds, really fundamental in building drug molecules.
Okay, the skeleton of the molecule.
Right. But it often involves these highly reactive intermediates organometallics. Think of them as like super eager chemical components that exist for only a fraction of a second.
Tricky to handle.
Very. Flow reactors are great here because that precise control over mixing and reaction time lets you generate these unstable things and immediately react them in a very controlled way.
Before they can fall apart or react incorrectly.
Exactly, leading to better yields and fewer side products compared to trying to manage them in a big pot.
Makes sense. Control is key for reactive species. What about reductive emanation?
That's another real workhorse reaction in pharma. It's used to make amines, which are nitrogen-containing groups found in tons of drugs.
Okay, another common building block.
Yeah. Doing it continuously means you can mix the starting materials, the aldehyde or ketone, the amine, the reducing agent, really efficiently and consistently.
Better mixing, better consistency.
And what's often used here are packed bed reactors.
Pack bed.
Imagine a tube filled with solid beads coated with a catalyst. The reaction mixture flows through this bed.
So the reaction happens on the surface of the beads.
Right. And the product flows out, but the catalyst stays behind, trapped in the bed.
Oh, that simplifies things. No need to filter out the catalyst later.
Exactly. It streamlines the whole process, integrating the reaction and the catalyst separation.
So these flow systems aren't just about controlling the reaction, but also integrating steps like purification or separation sometimes.
That's a huge part of the appeal, yes. The sources, especially the process chemistry ones, definitely point towards this trend.
Even if they don't list every single drug made this way.
Right. The focus on optimizing reactions in flow, improving yield, simplifying workup, performing multiple steps in line, it all points to wider adoption.
Okay, stepping back then.
Yeah.
Let's connect this to the bigger picture. How does adopting continuous flow fit with the overall goals of, pharmaceutical development?
Well, if you connect the dots, efficiency gains, potentially faster reactions, that clearly points towards potentially speeding up drug development timelines.
Getting drugs to patients faster.
That's the hope. And the better control over quality, fewer impurities. That leads to more consistent, safer medicines.
Makes sense. And scalability.
Crucial for reliable supply, making sure enough medicine is available when needed. And, potentially over time contributing to more stable or even lower manufacturing costs.
What about the regulators, like the FDA? Are they on board with this shift? What did the sources suggest?
The material didn't give us specific FDA documents on flow chemistry per se,
Okay.
but the general push from regulatory agencies worldwide is towards better quality, more robust manufacturing, better process understanding.
Right. Things like process analytical technology, PAT,
Ah,
real-time monitoring.
exactly. And PAT fits perfectly with continuous flow, where you can monitor things in real time much more easily than in a giant batch. So the regulatory environment seems generally favorable, or at least very interested in these modern approaches.
Okay, great. So let's bring it back to our listener. If you had to summarize the key takeaways from this deep dive on continuous flow reactors.
I'd say it boils down to three main things. First, enhance safety, better control smaller volumes.
Got it. Safety first.
Second, efficiency gains higher yields, less waste, faster processing, integrated steps.
More out, less waste, faster.
And third, that smarter scalability, numbering up with parallel systems instead of just building bigger,
Yeah.
more flexible, more robust.
Safety, efficiency, scalability,
Yeah.
and that aha moment.
Yeah.
What stands out is particularly insightful.
For me, yeah, it's that elegance of numbering up.
Right.
It just feels like a more, intelligent engineering solution compared to the brute force, make it bigger approach of traditional batch scaling. It's modular.
It really reframes the problem. Okay, so why is this relevant? Why should someone listening care about this?
Well, understanding the shift gives you context, right? If you're involved in pharma, biotech, investing, or even just interested in how medicines are made, this shows you where manufacturing technology is heading. It helps you appreciate the science behind the pills you might take. It's about the future of making medicines.
Definitely. Okay, final thought to leave everyone with, something to chew on.
Well, as we see pharma adopting these agile, highly controlled, continuous processes, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Wonder what?
What other industries, maybe fine chemicals, specialty foods, who knows, could learn from this level of precision and continuous operation?
Interesting. Could these principles apply elsewhere?
Maybe. And the other side of the coin is, how will these advancements in making drugs ultimately affect us? Will it really make essential medicines more accessible, more affordable down the line?
Big questions. Definitely something worth thinking about.